So I have a few things to demo. One of them is something we had demoed before with using the JavaScript injector. It's replacing the piping, and let me show you what it does. So if we go to a record here, so the piping, you saw that it replaced the uh, the little underscores. So let me just go ahead and disable that so you can see what it's like without it. So REDCap, whenever you have, it should automatically do that. Let me make sure I disabled it. There we go. So whenever you have a field that you're piping a value into or a descriptive text box like this, REDCap automatically puts in 6 underscores to create a line to show you that there's a piped value, but it's blank. And originally we had people who wanted to replace that or get rid of it so that way it didn't show up because they had huge instruments with a bunch of pipe fields and they just didn't want to see all these blank underlines. So originally I had created this script for the JavaScript injector that goes through each span and looks for this piping receiver class and then replaces, and then within that text, it grabs that element, and if the text within that element is this 6 underscores, then it just replaces it with an empty string. So if I click on inspect here and bring the inspect window down, you can see here that these 3 fields are piped fields. They're the first, middle, and last name fields. And you can see that everything that is being piped automatically gets this class of piping receiver. And so that's what my code is doing, is it's looking for anything when this window loads, anything that has that piping receiver, and then it's gonna cycle through. That's what this each is it cycles through any that it finds and replaces the text. Now this still works, but the problem is REDCap recently updated the way they're handling piping on separate forms. So this code works when you're piping the fields directly onto the form that the fields are on the same form. So let me go back and re-enable this. And if we go back to that record, then we should see the line go away. So this is how this would look now on this form. But if I have this data piped to a different form, so let me just save this so you can see that you can see here that if I click on any of these other fields, this comes back. And that's because this only runs when it's loading. But when you save it and refresh, it goes away. So you don't have to worry about that. But if we go to this next form now, you can see here that it's grabbing this value and it's putting the underline again. Now, the problem is if we go to the inspect tab for this, you can see here that this is not giving me the piping receiver that it was before. It's in this class equals pipe value is actually something I did. So let me go into the instrument here and just remove these. So you can see here that this is just the same as we had before. But if I go into the code here, I've actually split these up into individual spans. And I've given them a class of piped value. I don't need to do that. And actually I could just take these off, because originally I thought my workaround was going to be having to grab the class and use that value. Now I also want to show you, we'll see if it works on here. If it's just, so you can see here that it grabbed, or that REDCap changed this. And this is one of the things I don't like about the rich text editor sometimes, is it'll go through and change things that you've just done. So you'll notice that this now is all wrapped in a paragraph tag. It just grabbed all the spans that I had and just put them together. So we can see if it still works that way. If not, I'll have to put the spans back. But the big thing is that whenever the fields get piped to a new form, REDCap no longer runs the code that it does code to do the piping. What it does is it just grabs this text. So it just renders that text out, what the piping text would be, and it just puts that text directly into like the paragraph tags. It doesn't add a span. It doesn't add a class of piping receiver. And so the reason this wasn't working was because my code is looking specifically for something that says piping underscore receiver. And if it doesn't find anything, it's not going to replace anything. So this code doesn't work when you're piping fields onto a different form than where those fields are originating from. So what I ended up doing to fix that was, and actually fix both it's updating the code for everything. Now what this does is I have a function that goes through every node and every element on the page, and it checks to see if that element is text. So this node type 3 is saying that if the node type is text, because there's values 1, 2, and 3. And what I'm saying, I'm giving this content a value, and I'm using a regular expression, and you don't need to go into all that. But I'm basically saying, if you find this pattern of 6 underscores, replace it with an empty string. And then I'm just going through each node that it finds. So it's basically it's doing the same sort of thing as the other code was doing, but it's not using the piping receiver. Now it's just saying, grab all the nodes that are text, and within those nodes, if you find this value, replace it with an empty string. So if I put that into our JavaScript injector, and we go back to our record. So this is working just fine, like it was working before. And now if we go back to the next page, it's going to do the same thing. So it'll work for any pipe fields, and I wish I could show you the project that basically had 100 of these pipe fields, because they have maybe 15 or 20 different instruments, and then they have one instrument that's like a review instrument or something that pulls all the data in, and it's very nice and tabular. So I will, when I post this online, I'll make this code available for anybody who's using it. We did go through all of the projects that are using the JavaScript the JavaScript injector, and checked any that were using the old code and replaced it with this code. So anybody who's already using it should be fine. But if you are, just go ahead and check your project. And if you need the code, it'll be up on the website. And if not, you can email us directly and we'll send it to you. So does anybody have any questions about that?